I'm Kent and you're watching Weekend Adventure Rides. This week we're going to build a bracket for the Coil. All right, so I've got the tank mounted up. This is the factory 3.3 gallon tank. I like the appearance of this tank, but it did need a little tank lift in the front, so I did a 2-inch lift. I'll put a link to that. That's just a cheap $7 Amazon lift. I should have just built it myself, but for $7, what the hell. We're going to mount this coil pack on the side here. Originally it was up underneath the tank here. I don't like how that looks. We'll get some exposure here, get some cool spark plug wires to use with this. This right now has the choke mount right here. We're going to relocate that choke up to this area. We'll use this choke mount bracket kind of as a reference for when we build this new bracket, which will incorporate the choke and allow us space to put the coil on without it interfering with your legs or anything like that, and then not touching the motor. So let's get started on that. We'll pull this bracket off. All right, so I got my stubby wrench and then a 5/16 hex head here. We'll take this off. There we go. With that off, you can spin this around. Okay, we'll loosen up that mount nut there for the choke here. It's got one of these locking washers on it. So as I'm looking at this part, I'm realizing that it's really, not in my best interest to build an entirely new piece where I can use what's already on the bike. So this already fits perfectly. So why not just clean this up, weld a bracket to it that holds the coil and just comes down, flip this over to hold the choke. So I'm just gonna take this apart. So I'm gonna go a little mad scientist here. We're gonna chop things up and come up with a plan. Our mounting point, we're gonna get a width here. We want that to be 50 millimeters, so right at 5 centimeters. Okay. And then we're gonna come forward off the bracket. It looks like about 2.5 centimeters. We'll bring that down. Okay, and that's coming out from the bracket. And then what we wanna do is just have it from the top of this to the bottom here. That's all the length we want. So 5.7 centimeters. Okay, and then we want the same width as the edges of these bolt holes here. Okay, and this is overall 8.6 centimeters. We'll have to do a cutout here for the wiring that's going to go into the coil. Okay, I'm just going to cut this out now. Well, this should be a pretty easy little bracket to make. So let's grab a piece of 3/16 steel here and we'll get this started. Okay, so it's going to fit like that, and then we'll bend this side down like that. Should fit pretty good. Like so. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the vise. We'll set up the grinding wheel and we'll get it cut out. So I've got this bracket kind of roughed out here. We're gonna put some marks on here, as well as where we're gonna put this little cutout for this plug. So you guys are kind of getting to enjoy the creative process here, exactly how I do this. There's not a lot of planning that goes into it beforehand. You kind of just going for it. Fortunately, things usually work out well. If they don't, they end up in the trash, and that does happen from time to time. So the center punch fits pretty well into those holes, actually perfectly. So I should get a really close center punch there. There we go. We got our center punch. We got that onto the plate. So we'll put the plate back into the vise, and then we're going to drill some holes. Okay, so I'm going to drill using 17/64 drill bit. So we've got the holes drilled where that's going to fit, but we need a hole, you see that, for that thing. So we'll get this kind of roughly lined up here, and I'm going to use my Sharpie and just mark kind of the corners here. Okay, so we're going to cut out something like that. Now that I got a few holes drilled in there, I'm going to enlarge those with this step bit so I can get the barrel sander in there on the Dremel so we can get that all opened up. So now that I've got this hole kind of cleaned out, use the Dremel to make it a little bit larger. I wanted to square up the sides just using a file. And even everything out. Okay, there we go. Nice rectangular hole there. And we'll check the fit. Looks perfect. Plenty of room to put that plug in. Okay, so I'm going to line everything up, get those bolt holes in the right spot. Okay, and then I'm just going to follow the outside like this. Looks pretty good there. And then we'll put this back in the vise, and I'm going to use our grinder here, and we'll clean up all these edges so that it fits perfectly on there. All right, got that cleaned up now. Should fit a little bit nicer. Now we'll get it bent. Okay, now I need a big hammer. Okay, really liking how that's looking there. Plan is to get that welded on like that, but we got to clean this up a little bit, get it smoothed out. Okay, looks good. Okay, I've got the welder set up here. So we're gonna get this lined up and we'll get it tacked into place. And then we'll check the fit on the motorcycle. Okay, so I've got it all squared up now. Pretty happy with how it looks on there. I'm gonna put a few more tacks on here and then weld it all the way on. I went ahead and cleaned up these welds, made that nice and smooth transition there. So everything looks good. Looks like it was meant to be there. Okay, so now we're gonna incorporate this choke mount here into the top. All right, got that cut off. You see I kind of beveled it here. All right, I'm gonna throw a tack on here real quick. Okay, that looks pretty good. That is the nearly finished bracket mount. I'll probably do some additional cleaning on this before I sandblast it and get it powder coated. But that's really what we're looking at for the complete bracket. Okay, so I'm going to get the coil mounted onto the bracket before I put it on the bike. I got some new hardware because the factory hardware was a little bit short. These are a 2-inch cap head, 1/4 inch by 20. And then 1/4 inch, just a standard stainless washer. And then I'm going to use stainless lock nut, 1/4 20. So I'm not going to get these super tight here, just hand tight's fine. We're not going to ride the bike. This is just for preliminary assembly before we take everything back apart and do paint and powder coat. So we just want to make sure everything's going to fit right. All right, let's jump over to the bike. All right, here we go. Gonna put the rear one in first just to hold it kind of in place like that. And then I've got this speedometer bracket, so we'll get that lined up. And then using our 5/16 key here. Okay, then we'll get our choke cable here in place. That is an 11/16. Plenty of room for that choke, even with these plug wires here. Okay, so we've got our coil bracket relocation done here, nice and stable in good position, not gonna interfere with my leg when I'm riding. You can buy something similar to this with the plug wires. It's about $90 on eBay. I'll put a link to that in the description if you just want to buy one. But if you want to fabricate your own, you've got a welder, you've got the tools. Now you have the information on how to do it if you have this similar bike. Some of the bikes had a little different mounting point here, so maybe you would have to fabricate the mount to the motor. Fortunately, we don't have to do that with the 2004 to 2006 bikes. I think they all have this same mount, so you can use that and kind of repurpose it like I did. So I hope this gives you some good information to go out there and start fabricating on your own. Please like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next week, and we'll get started on the next project.